All right. Well, it says that it's live. So I guess it is.
Well, it says that it's live.
Which one is that?
So I guess it is. Well, it says that it's live.
Which one is that?
So
Just hold on.
I guess it is.
Okay, so there we go. All right. Okay, so this is a Hangout, so the link is below. If you have trouble with the link, just tell me. I've got the chat window. It's delayed a little bit, but just tell me, and you can join if you want. So what I'm going to do is, it's just like 15 or 20 minutes. If no one shows up, then it's over. It's late on the East Coast, if tomorrow is late. All right. First, I have a couple things. I have 3 cards I'm going to talk about. So the first thing was just lava. So Hawaii, I don't need this on. I need the headset though. Hawaii is having, the volcano there is going crazy. I was thinking of showing some video of it actually. Let's see. Yeah, I might as well do that. Well, maybe I'll do it this way. We'll just search for it together. First of all, Big Island. And, you know, when I was in Hawaii, you know, the lava did a somewhat predictable thing. Right after I left, it went towards Pahoa town, and that was like, oh, that's surprising. But basically, you used to just come out somewhere different, go for a while, and then come out somewhere different and go for a while. But while I was there, and really from the mid to late 80s on, it just went from this, from Kilauea down to the ocean, and actually added a couple miles to the island. Now it's going crazy. So they just had a 6.9 earthquake. And yesterday, I guess it was, they had, let's see if this is a video. The lava, no, it's not, but still you can see lava broke out right underneath a neighborhood. I have friends that live in this neighborhood. My family, my brother, and my, you know, dad and stepmom live on either side of this rift zone that is now splitting apart. And now mostly what has happened is lava will come out at the top and it'll roll down the hill. When it rolls down the hill, you get a sheet of lava, but there's lava tubes in it. So when it goes up at the top, it goes down these lava tubes and it'll break out different weird little places. But basically, you know, in that case, it's coming down and going through these tunnels that are established. But there's tunnels all over the island. And also there's the fact that the island is sort of, you know, it's like breaking off and going into the ocean at like an inch a year. It's just a layer of big rock on top of other rock, and it slowly slides down into the ocean. So there's a place where the rift zones are, is where the island is kind of breaking apart. This is right near a rift zone, and this is actually a pretty nice neighborhood where you can move out of town and get a cheaper house. But they're pretty nice houses, so you might pay the same amount of money, but you get a, you know, much nicer house. So they had a 6.9 and 5.4 earthquakes, and these are huge city, crashing sized earthquakes. Well, not the 5.4 is medium for a city that's used to it, but a 6.9, you're starting to talk about the kind of earthquake that'll crush.
Thursday, May 3rd, 2018 at 9:15 p.m. Hawaiian Volcano Observatory.
This just broke out, cut a road in half. It's about, I forget how many, hundreds of yards long. Now, 3 of these, so this is just a crack in the ground right underneath people that has broken open. You could probably hear some of this in the background. I know that makes it noisy, but a crack just opens up in the ground underneath a neighborhood and lava starts coming out. Now, 3 of these have broken up. I talked to my brother. He says there's another one up near these steam vents. It's actually going under the major well, it's not a major highway, but under the main road, the kind of highway type road. It's going under there and coming up on the other side, right? So people are driving across lava underground. I think there's 2 houses I heard of that are lost so far. That's got to be one of them, right?
Hawaii Gas Company customers with questions should call their 24/7 hotline at.
In addition to this, lava, there's been a couple hundred earthquakes a day, basically constant earthquakes as the lava courses underground. Another thing is oh, somebody's in here. Hey, Corollas. What's up? Who are you? Hello? Yeah, gone. For the better, I think. Yeah, I don't know if I can get it, but basically this lava was at the surface. And at the surface, what it does is, there's a little crust of black on the top. And then it collapsed, all the lava emptied out, and now it's like a 200 or 300 foot deep. You can't even see lava at the bottom of it, just an empty, chasm. And all that lava has flowed down into the funnel system of the EP. Yeah, hello. So, let's see, I'll put this back up. So basically, here's what's happened. So this is the rift zone, and this part below is just falling off the island slowly, but like at an inch a year or something. So just in a normal case, there's been earthquakes all along this area, and actually all along a huge area. Here's the crater where the lava has been pulling up, and it's been going out down here and down here and down here, for years now. I have a brother that actually lives, right on the lava here somewhere. Land was real cheap down there. And anyway, so it's flowing out into this rift, right? In 1955, it came out. It came out all the way down here and covered Kapoho. Okay, what's doing now is it's come down here. There were cracks formed in the streets in this neighborhood, and then it's broken out. That thing we just looked at is right here where my cursor is, assuming you can see the cursor. Yeah. And then a couple streets over. So there's 3 cracks from here up to here, and that's where the lava has broken out. There's also around here a crack, or maybe down here, I'm not sure. My brother says the steam vents, and I don't know where along here. I know it's after Leilani Estates. There's a geothermal power station over here that's closed down as part of the emergency procedures, and it's kind of in the path if this lava keeps going for, often these kinds of things go on for a couple months before they subside. Now, over here it's showing a lava flow that went in 2014 and came all the way down and almost went into Pahoa. Okay, so this one is right here, and lava is just breaking out. So how did you find my... How did you find my stream?
Hitler did absolutely nothing wrong.
But how do you find the stream then? How'd you find the... Right.
Kick me and I will remove you from the call.
No, but I'm asking you, how did you find the stream?
I just YouTube Google Hangouts.
Interesting. Huh. Interesting. So anyway, that's one thing I've been thinking about, because I got family up here in Paradise Park. I got family down here. It's a funny thing too, just because I had a bad experience in the end and why I'm glad to be away from it. But then I have loved ones and friends, and then strangers who, I don't hope anything bad against, and people often make a religion, out of the Pele kind of thing, and Pele comes and gets things she doesn't like or whatever. Pele, the typical story with Pele is an old woman comes into town needing help, and the people that don't help her get covered in lava, so it's sort of a punishment myth. And no, this is geology, and it's just totally ruthless. But the lava's come out in this big part since the 80s, so we got used to that. But this is some crazy shit that hasn't happened for like 60, 70 years, basically. But there's cracks all along here, so the lava, if it wants to, since it emptied out of the Pu'u'o crater, it could just flow down here, and then there's tons of pressure, and it's like you'd think there'd be empty lava tubes, and it would be like, well, it just fills them up. No, it comes pouring out. And this neighborhood, it's like even the houses that aren't destroyed, they're going to be useful to the people that want to live there, but their property values are fucking toast. And actually, Mauna Loa is supposed to go too, and then it'll go way north of here into Hilo. But Hilo gets, it might take a few weeks or months to get to Hilo, so Hilo has an extra respite from it. All right, so that's card number 1, lava update. Card number 2. Card number 2 is Well, I'm going to do card number 3 first. And actually, card number 3 has 2 different things on it. And I'm going to do thing number 2 off of card number 3. And then I'll do thing number 1 off card number 3. I was going to do it the other way. This was going to be the last thing. Spirituality, you know, this is what's missing from atheism. And also politics, and just from the decency of human life. Now, why? People complain that I would try to keep that word, but I don't think there's another word for it. Basically, the word spirit is basically just it's the quality of a thing, like the color red, or it's blue, or you know, it has this kind of texture or not. That has to do with life. Originally, it comes from the word for breathing or breath, and it's the same in many languages. It's about a thing that's alive. Like you could have a living fox and a dead fox, and the difference between those two, or a living fox and a rock. You know, we call the quality of being the living thing having a spirit. It doesn't mean that it's metaphysical. It's not about ghosts. It's about living things. That's etymologically the history of the word, right? And then the second part is that there's a thing that's a spiritual feeling. It's a notable feeling, just like hunger or pain or a color or sound. Any sensation we can have, you know, has this characteristic in its own space. And there is one that's a spiritual feeling. It's not just happiness or any of those. Those are different feelings. It's its own feeling. And it's not particularly like joyful. It feels really good, though. And you should try to have this feeling. People say you should try to have sex and have the feeling of an orgasm. And, you know, you don't necessarily need a partner for it. And they're probably right. You should experience it one way or another. And the same is true of spirituality. It's a feeling. I think it's related to life, but it's not like it's the feeling of being alive, though, you know, maybe. But, you know, like I have a spiritual kind of feeling when I look at a beautiful view in the Grand Canyon. You can have a spiritual feeling at any moment. You should pay attention to it. So a spirituality is just like, what do you think about those particular experiences? Now, largely, you have to pay attention to this. Like the feeling of love at first sight or the feeling of comprehension, they're not as reliable. It feels like, hey, I figured it out. And that's the feeling of comprehension. And you believe you figured it out because you have that feeling. But it's not particularly reliable. You can easily have that feeling and you don't have it figured out. And the process of learning is a series of, oh, I figured it out. No, I didn't figure out what. Oh, I did figure it out now. Oh, wait, what? And that possibly goes on forever. Whereas the feeling of spirituality, if you have a spiritual feeling about at some point in your experiences, that experience is important, period. It's not always necessarily positive. It could be negative. Like Nazis, they were spiritual. They paid attention to that feeling and got their spiritual rocks off on Hinduism, mysticism, perverted to the Aryan myth that they pulled out of their ass. So it's not always a good thing. So what I'd suggest with spirituality is you pay attention, anything that's not wrong, not violent, and so on, you should do it. You have a spiritual feeling when you are cooking. Oh, wow, everything fits together. It just feels like the world is huge and we're all connected. While you're cooking, you know, you should cook. You should do what it is that you feel spiritual about. Now, if it's negative, like I'm having a spiritual feeling that I ought to smite the hell out of that motherfucker. You should go, wait a second. Okay, that's what a moral system is for. I'm going to get to that. That's what a moral system is for. And that seems questionable. So I'm going to double think and triple think whether I ought to smite that motherfucker. Right? And so you try to limit the amount of negative actions or even eliminate from your spirituality, but to pursue the positive actions. And you don't want to just like prohibit the whole feeling that's leading to a negative idea that's spiritual. You want to take that and try to turn it into a positive. I want to smite a motherfucker. You know what? I'm going to reach out my hand, see if I can just make up with him. Oh, I'm going to do this or that to solve this problem in a positive way. So you want to pursue a positive spirituality, which I think ends up being the philosophy of being alive and the philosophy of how to treat other living creatures. Because in materialism, you have to worry about what matters. And what matters is living things and the experiences that they have. All right, and on the same card number 3 that I did second, that I'm going backwards on. So this is point number 1, and card number 3 is I wanted to describe the difference between ethics and morality, right? So ethics and morality, right? So now remember, I have my philosophy is a language. I am defining words carefully. I am telling you explicitly and with full transparency what those definitions are. And then I could even just be making up new words. We call it Bohrang and Huwalop. And here are their definitions. But I'm going to use the word ethics and morality because my definitions were created as an attempt to give clarity to these two concepts that most people have a very confused idea of and maybe no clear definition. So I'm offering you, candidates for a clear definition of morality and ethics. Now, morality it's not how other people should act. A morality is something you use, an individual uses, to help them decide what is the proper, acceptable, and beneficial way to treat other people in groups they belong to, which makes morality like an onion skin kind of structure, where you have a morality even of how to treat yourself, but then you certainly have a morality of how to treat people in your family, and a morality of how to treat people in your town and broader community, how to treat people in the nation, how to treat people in the world, how to treat living things, whatever planet they're from, how to treat inanimate things, possibly, how to treat everything, groups that you belong to, which are nested, but they're also sometimes alternate. It's like you have how to treat people in your village, and you have how to treat people in your slightly overlapping group of your church, say. Right? That's morality. What is the proper way to treat people in groups I belong to? Ethics is how to treat people in groups I don't belong to, but I'm related to. And that's why we see it in the ethics of I'm a doctor. How should I treat people that aren't doctors, but are patients, which have a relationship to doctors? It's the ethics of treating each other. There's also an ethics of I'm a patient. What kind of treatment should I give, respect or otherwise, to my doctor? I should show them respect and be thankful that they're treating my malady, but also I can get a second opinion. I should get a second opinion. Those would be ethics. We usually think of the ethics more from the powerful position to the less powerful position, but that's kind of artificial. It's really just between two roles. What's the ethical way of a doctor to treat the nurses, and the nurse to treat the doctor, and a psychologist to treat their patient, and so on. That's ethics. When you're in a role, so it's not as individualistic as morality ultimately is, because you have a role in society, and the question is, how should you treat people in other roles? So now you know. Okay, card number 1, my final card, 2 terms: progress and liberty. Progress and liberty. First of all, progress. Not everybody believes that it's possible to make progress. Buddhists think it's a big cycle. Cynics thinks it's a decay, right? So to say you're progressive means you think there should be progress now, and there can be progress. It doesn't mean you think there should be more socialized medicine. Maybe you're in a system where there's enough. It doesn't mean, the certain emotionally troubled, I think, people that think we need an ethno-state in the United States. They would say that's progress, right? Progress is arbitrary, right? So why say you're progressive if it can be in a conservative or a liberal direction? Well, because some people think it's all cyclic or that you can't make progress, it's static, or that there's a decay. If you believe that you can make progress, putting one foot in front of another, going to this destination or that destination or the destination back there, that's still an important point. And then once you make that point, well, most people find it difficult to argue that, hey, let's reinstitute slavery. That would be progress. Well, then you have to argue of why would we want that goal? Why would we be trying to do that? And so that's why progressivism is liberal, because secretly we all agree on what's good and bad. Some people want to abuse other people, but they're not saying it's not bad to get abused. They're just saying they want to be on the power side of it. So progress ends up being liberal, because we all know we want to get to a place with less war, less slavery, more wealth for more people, and so on. Okay, so to be against progress is basically to be for progressing to a negative place, but not willing to admit that's what you want. Liberty, that's an interesting thing to me, because liberty, a lot of liberals don't like that idea. It's like, oh, freedom and the individual. Well, you need a society to create the context in which an individual can exist and sort of motivate the individuality. And you can measure it in terms of a person's liberty. Right. So, for example, let's say some person wants to just be in some city or township and be like everybody else. And, hey, we all go to the opera. I do that. We like our sports team, and I do that. And we like our university, and that's where we go study, and I do that. Right. So some sort of a conformist. Oh, are they really free? Well, you could still measure that based on the ability of, well, can they go to some other university? Can they not like the football team? Can they do their own thing in terms of moving through space, adopting different activities? Can they or not? Well, again, you can measure that, but it might be difficult. Well, but there'll be some tiny amount, if not the bulk, some wing of the bell curve that wants to do very different things, that wants to dress in unconventional clothes or make unconventional art or whatever to break that convention. Are they able to? If they are, then that other person that's decided not to also could. You can measure the liberty of a situation, right? The freedom of an individual to make their own individual choices, which is what all individuals, should be able to do. Again, I think in terms of progress, it's very hard to argue against that. and very few people actually try. It's kind of like we often think that an ethics argument, you know, that, like, for example, like, how do you know stealing is wrong? We ask ourselves and everybody else. How can we prove that? We must prove that stealing is wrong in order to justify our actions against the thief. But you don't really have to prove it's wrong before proving that you're going to act on that reality, right? You don't have to prove that it's wrong to steal. You just have to decide what you're going to do when someone steals from you, right? The moral question of if is it right to steal is something that when you're faced with that temptation or whatever, or prior to that, that you ask yourself and answer for yourself. General liberty is not saying people can just be assholes to each other. It's not even saying that people are individuals in the sense that they don't need other people. No, it's just saying that you can fly your own flag, you can wear whatever kind of clothes, marry or not marry who you want, and so on and so, not go to church or go to church. All of the above. You can be a conformist, but people that don't want to be won't have to be either. And we can measure this. And the relationship to progress is that I don't think there is a better measure of progress. There's a lot of other very important measures of progress, because you can measure things like, hey, do less babies die during birth? Do kids live longer and go into adulthood? What's our lifespan? How much disposable income does each individual have? You can measure a kind of progress, and then you can also measure liberty. And so if you have a material kind of the survivability and comfort of progress and liberty, you've made sure to include a measurement of liberty, well, then that is progress, right? So the obvious things that nobody really can seriously argue against, like like people living longer, plus liberty, because that means that while they were alive, they made their own choices. They might have made the wrong choices. Maybe they would have been happier doing something else, et cetera, et cetera. But if the guy wanted to go move to the Mosquito Coast or wear a dress or sing a new kind of music or any of that, if that was okay, then you had a situation where there was liberty, and that would be progress. Okay, so that's all three things. I had nobody come in except for a couple trolls, which was interesting. Thank you, troll kids. I'm fascinated by psychological problems, so naturally I appreciate you coming and showing what we're dealing with. It's the 21st century. Let's not pretend it's very far in the future. As a matter of fact, it's the present. Interesting. Used to be the future.